Hello everyone, how's it going, and welcome to another video. Today I'm excited to bring you Lulu, which just came out last night. Really good for shielding your team, giving your team extra health, and even turning enemies into sheep as well. But enough of me talking, let's head straight into the abilities. First up, we've got her passive, which is Pix, which is her little companion, her little fly. Basically what Pix does is it basically gives you a little bit of extra damage when you're auto attacking. You can also attach to other champions as well as other enemies if you hit them with certain abilities. So if you cast E on a champion like a ally or a enemy, your Pix will actually go further than what your range is, if that makes sense. I'll show you a bit of gameplay later on to make a bit more sense to you. Q is called Glitter Lance. Glitter Lance is a little skill shot which goes in a line. It will basically slow down the enemies depending on who it hits, and it will decay over 2 seconds. Again, your Pix will also slow down the enemies as well. So you have two little skill shots, one which is for your Pix and one which is for yourself. So if you cast your E, which is your third ability, on an ally or an enemy champion, your Pix's Q will actually extend further into the lane or wherever you want to aim it, so you can aim it a little bit further and slow down enemies further ahead of you, which is really important. I'll show you that a bit later on. Next up is Lulu's second ability, Whimsy. Whimsy in Wild Rift is a skill shot, a little bit different to League of Legends where it's just a point and click. With Whimsy, when you activate your skill shot, it will leave a little bubble, and depending on whether an ally or an enemy walks into the bubble will depend on what ability gets played. If it's an ally, they'll gain increased movement speeds and attack speed for 2.5 seconds. If it's an enemy, the enemies will be polymorphed for 1.25 seconds. You'll turn into a little sheep or a little dragon, and it disables them from casting abilities or attacking, and reduces their base movement speed by 60, which is really strong ability. If, say for example, a Zed is trying to ulti you, or if someone's trying to run at you, it's really good for slowing down the enemies. And like I said, it stops them from doing anything. They can't attack, they can't use spells. So it's a really powerful spell. Just a quick side note as well, the ring will prioritize polymorph instead of the attack speed and the movement speed on an ally. Her E, or her third ability, is called Help Pix. It's a little point and click spell. It will either shield your allies for a certain amount, or it will deal damage to an enemy champion. Again, this works with your passive and your first ability, where if you shield an ally which is further ahead of you and you want to use your first ability further ahead of them, it will actually work. So Pix will actually go to where the E moves to. And her last ability is Wild Growth. Now, Wild Growth is a great support ability. It knocks up everyone around that whoever you activate on. So for example, your AD carry is surrounded by loads of enemies, it will knock them all up, so it's really good and combination for Yasuo. It also slows everyone around them, and it gives your ally more HP as well depending on your ability power. Like I said, it's a really strong spell, something to keep your AD carry alive or keep yourself alive as well if you're that sort of player. Now it's time to move on to the items, runes and spells. First off, we have Locket of the Iron Solari, or Ionian Locket as it's called in Wild Rift. This is the boots upgrade, and with the boots I've gone for the Lucidity boots to give you that ability haste / cooldown reduction. Really good for getting your second ability or your third ability off, because you can cast it multiple times during a fight. And also Ionian Locket also shields yourself and nearby allies as well, which is really important during laning phase. I found that with supports, when they rush Locket, you feel a bit more confident when you're moving forward as an AD carry and you can fight as an AD carry. Next up for items, we have Harmonic Echo. Now Harmonic Echo is really good for champions that can shield your allies. Basically what happens is every time you're moving or casting abilities, you'll gain up stacks, and at 100 stacks, the next ally that you shield will also heal them as well, and nearby enemies. Also gives you some extra ability power as well, gives you some mana in there as well to keep casting during a fight. Also some ability haste as well, some cooldown reduction to be able to use your third and your second ability more during a fight. Next item might be familiar for those who play League of Legends. We have Ardent Sensor. Now in normal League of Legends, this is a core item for any champion that shields or heals or anything like that, especially support champions towards the AD carry. What this does is when you heal or shield an ally, both you gain attack speed, 10 to 30% depending on what level you are, and the attacks deal bonus magic damage as well. Again, a really important item to be able to boost up your AD carry. Lulu's always been about boosting your AD carry, keeping your AD carry alive. She might not be the tankiest, or she might not be like the frontline big beast, but she's always at the back line, always shielding and healing your allies and being able to keep them alive, giving them extra attack speed and extra boosts to help them carry the team fights. Next item we have is a Thing's Unholy Grail. With the Things, it stores 35% of the damage dealt and basically stores them as blood. Then when you shield an allied champion, you'll be able to release all that blood and heal the ally that you're shielding. Again, another item which is really good on Lulu, trying to keep your AD carry alive. Now the next two items are a bit more defensive items. You already have your 3 core items now with Harmonic Echo, Ardent Sensor and Things. These will allow you to make your shields stronger, be able to get that cooldown reduction, and also help your allies by healing them and also giving them extra attack speeds. The 4th item I'm gone for is Protector's Vow. Now for those of you that play League of Legends, you might be familiar with the rune Guardian, which is not in Wild Rift, but this is kind of an item which is fairly similar. What will happen is if yourself or your nearby ally takes damage, you'll both be shielded for a certain period of time, and also you gain a little bit of movement speed as well. It's a bit of a defensive item, just to make sure that you stick near your AD carry. If any of you get attacked by a tower or a champion, you'll both gain a shield, which will help keep you both alive. And the final item we've gone for is Guardian Angel. Just a no-brainer. Keep yourself alive. Really cheap item. Like I said, probably the most powerful item in the game. I've said that like a broken record now. I've said that many times. Onto the runes now. For the first rune, for the main one, I've gone for Airy, another little companion to go with Pix. What works really well with Airy is that it gives your allies shields when you use certain abilities. So for example, the second ability, the W, doesn't actually gain a shield, but if you have Airy up and available, and if you use your second ability, it will actually give your allies a shield, which will work really well with all your items, your Harmonic Echo, your Ardent, and everything that works well with shielding allies. Next up we have Weakness. Now Weakness is probably the best option in this rune slot because there's not really a lot of any other options. What this does is basically impairing the movement of an enemy champion makes them take more damage. So that could be with your Q, with your ultimate because they get slowed, and also with your W as well if they get polymorphed. It will allow your AD to do more damage, and the rest of your team really to do more damage to that one champion that you've slowed or that you use W towards. Next up we have Loyalty. Gives you armor and magic resist to you and your closest ally. Again, just really important during laning phase to get that little bit of extra armor, a little bit of extra magic resist during the laning phase, and to be able to keep you both alive during the fight. And finally we have Mana Flow Band. There's no Sweet Tooth in this one, as most of the time your AD carry will be collecting the Sweet Tooth to be able to gain an extra bit of gold. The reason we've gone for Mana Flow Band is that during the laning phase you'll actually find that you'll be poking down the enemies a lot with your Q and with your E, trying to deal some extra damage in lane, and this will gradually gain you extra mana as well. Now mana in the late game is super important. That means you can keep casting your E, you can keep casting your W and your ultimate, your second, third and your ultimate ability. And finally onto the spells, I've gone for Flash as always. With your second spell, you can either go for Exhaust or you can go for Ignite as well, depending on what the enemy matchup is. Ignite is very good for a very aggressive lane if you're maybe with a Jhin or something and you want to try and kill the opponent bot lane. Really important, does a little bit of extra damage. Exhaust most of the time is for if an enemy team has something that can jump on your AD carry or jump on yourself. If they have a Zed, if they have an Olaf, a Fiora, something that can come straight onto the back line and can be a real big threat. Exhaust will slow them down. A good thing to note as well is that even if you haven't got the champion unlocked, you can always enter practice mode. If you click the button on your top right hand side, you see you have the little 2D, the TV screen, the little person saying hi, then underneath that you have a little, looks like a Game Boy controller. If you hit that button, hit confirm, you can go into any game with any champion into practice mode and give them a try and see what they can do. So let's head straight into it and we'll see what the abilities do. First up, we have Lulu's passive, which is the Pix, the little companion that follows her around. Every single time that you attack someone, you'll see that Pix, the person next, the little dragon next to me, will also attack and deal a little bit of extra damage. And you also got Airy doing some damage in there as well. Just a thing to note as well, if there is a champion in front, let's say for example here, if I was to put a little enemy dummy there, if I was to attack the enemy behind them, the Pix will only target the first champion that they see. So it basically acts as like a block. Just a little side thing to note, just to think like, oh, I might be able to deal a little bit of extra damage with Airy and Pix. But just make sure that there's no champions or no minions between you and the person that you're attacking. Next up, we got Q, which is Glitter Lance. Now, as you can see, Glitter Lance has two paths to it. You have one which is from yourself and the other which is from Pix, which will then generate a middle point, which is the little circle with the dot in the middle. Now, the middle point, you want to make sure that it's always hitting the champion that you're trying to hit. With that, you'll be able to deal the most amount of damage and be able to slow them for the most amount of time as well. Sometimes if you do it like this, for example, sometimes you can miss because look what can happen. The range can actually go from all over the place. So you need to make sure that you target your Q correctly at the middle point to make sure that you can hit both the enemies. You can also tap the ability as well. It will also always target the champion that you're targeting, as always. Also, one thing to note as well with the Q, the first ability, is that it can also be extended if you shield or if you attack another ally with your third ability, your E. If, say for example, you're shielding an ally and then there's someone in front that you want to hit, Pix will follow the ally or the enemy that you will use your third ability on. So if I use my E or my third ability on the target dummy here, you can see that Pix is now on that that champion. So now the aim is a little bit different than before. And I can also reach out further ahead towards other dummies. So say for example, this is a team fight. You've got a champion in front of you, but the person behind is the one you want to slow. What you can do is you can use your third ability on the champion that's right in front of you, and then use your first ability just behind. You can get that double slow off, or you can get that long range slow off to the enemy in front so that the team can run down and hopefully kill that champion. Same with allies as well. If there's a champion in front that's a little bit too far ahead for your Q, you can shield them, and then you can also use your first ability to extend it a little bit further. Just a little tip there for you, just to make sure that you're able to utilize your slow at the fullest. Sometimes you cannot reach the champion that's too far ahead of you, so sometimes you have to shield or hit the enemy with your third ability that's in front of you, and then use your first ability to extend that slow even further, because Pix will travel to that champion. Next up, we have the second ability. Like I said, in this one, it's a skill shot. It's a little bubble that will spawn, and with the bubble, it depends on whether an ally or an enemy goes over the bubble to see what happens. You can use it on yourself, you can run over it, and it will give you movement speed and attack speed. You can use it on an ally as well to give them movement speed and attack speed, and will also make Pix go to that champion as well. Or on an enemy, it will turn them into a little squirrel. It will polymorph them so they can't do any damage or anything. One thing to note about the second ability is that it will always prioritize polymorph than the allied version, which will give them extra movement speed and attack speed. So say for example, if two enemies were on top of each other like this situation here, if I was to use my second ability, it will always prioritize the polymorph. So when you're in a team fight and you don't want to polymorph the enemy, you actually want to give your ally a little bit of movement speed and attack speed, the best thing to do is use a W just behind them. So then when your teammate is kiting backwards towards you, they'll be able to gain the movement speeds if they move backwards. So that's the best way to use a W in my opinion, because it's not a simple point and click now. You have to actually aim it in a certain area, which is really important. Obviously, if it's on top, if they're on top of the champion, if it's a Z, then you can prioritize polymorph in the Z, but just make sure you time it right, because with Z, he goes untargetable for a few seconds. You need to make sure you target it, make sure you use it at the right time to be able to polymorph the enemy champion. Next up, we have the third ability. I've touched on this already, but as I said, you can either shield an allied champion and picks will carry on with them, they'll follow them, or you can damage an enemy champion as well. So there's two versions of this ability. Just make sure you're using the right one. You can either shield an ally or deal damage to an ally, so just make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. It can be a little tricky at first, but you'll get used to it eventually. Now, next up is the ultimate ability. Now, with the ultimate ability, as I said before, it will knock up and slow nearby allies, and will also give your ally more HP on whoever you cast it on. Say, for example, here, if I wanted to give this ally more HP and knock up people around them, I can use it. It will knock up everyone around them. Even the Scuttle Crab came into party as well. So it will knock up nearby allies. It's really good to actually work with Yasuo and everyone, but it's a really good way to keep your allies alive. It actually makes your allies a bit bigger as well, which is really, really cool. We come to the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. If any of you have any questions, just make sure to leave them in the comments and I'll be able to answer them as much as I can. I think Lulu will be one of the top support champions in Wild Rift. Her utility, her buffs, her shields, and her ultimate will really bring a unique feel to Wild Rift, but also help your AD carry stay alive for a long period of time. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. Until the next one, stay safe and I'll see you soon.